Ladies, are you the one who gets it all done? Always pushing forward? Always striving? In the constant chase for success, when was the last time you took a moment just for you? We're always on the go, rushing from one task to the next, barely pausing to catch our breath. What if we took a moment to pause? Imagine listening in, really listening, to the wind, to your heartbeat, to your soul. What if slowing down was the key, a chance to discover a deeper connection with yourself? And from that connection expand it to those you love, to the moments that truly matter. Pause, reflect, connect. It's time to live fully from the inside out. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a Soulful Pause. I'm Josette Diaz, and I am a self-awareness coach for women that are in midlife. And I run a beautiful community called The Art of Awareness. And this is where ladies gather to witness one another and to increase their awareness so that they can see the patterns that are happening around them that are keeping them standing still and in place, and where this is where their frustration lies. And so this is an opportunity to further your self-awareness so that you increase your emotional intelligence and start to relieve yourself from the patterns that are holding you back. I have a beautiful guest with me today, and her name is Joan Stensler. And I am so excited to tell you a little bit about Joan. Now, Joan is a communication specialist, motivational speaker, and women's empowerment coach in New York City. She teaches smart, successful women who do too much how to take back their time and energy by speaking up, saying no to others, and yes to their own needs, desires, and dreams. Now, Joan has the privilege of helping so many brilliant, high-achieving women break free from self-doubt, recognize their true worth, and step into their power with confidence. And as a result, they take bold action, speak up for themselves, and create the success and fulfillment they once hesitated to claim. So you're in for a real treat in this conversation, and I can't wait to get started. How are you today, Joan?
I'm great. I'm really grateful to be here, and it's a really important subject that I know you have been speaking about for a long time, so I'm excited for our conversation today.
So am I. I'm really excited, and I know you have some exciting things coming up, so we're going to get to that as well. And I think the audience is going to really enjoy what you have to say, and excited about the things that you have coming up. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm so happy that we got to do this. We've been working on it for a while, and here we are. So I'd like to just kind of start off by asking you, I know that you've helped so many high achieving women break free from their self-doubt and truly own their worth. And what do you think the biggest belief that holds women back from stepping into their full power?
Such an important question. I think the key in all of this is to recognize the power exists. The power is there. It's a matter of claiming it. So then the question is, well, how is it that women who have that power might not claim it? Well, one of the reasons is they might not realize they have the power. They might not know it's there. They might not think that it's within them to take these big steps. Another reason is that they may know it's there, but they're focusing on the situation in a way that's interfering with their being able to claim the power. And here's what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
So many women, because we're very connected to the people in our lives and our connections are so important, so many women focus on what someone else will say, think, or do if we step into our power, and they worry
Mhm.
about the response. And so the concern is, well, if I say that or if I do that, will they like it? If I say that or I do that, will they approve? If I say that or I do that, will it make waves? And so often women, in order to keep the peace, which is one of the things that women often are known to do, is the peacemakers.
Yeah.
In order to keep the peace, we keep our power in check to avoid having those possible problems. And the problem with that is that what we do in that process is that we're handing control over to our perceptions of what we think is going to happen. Now,
Mhm.
it could be based on reality that we've had a challenge with someone in a relationship when we've attempted to talk about something important to us and they haven't been able to create space or appreciate or value us. But it could also be that we have an expectation it's not going to go well. And so fear and false belief behind that expectation is what's stopping us. And the key is to be able to think of the situation from our own perspective and what is the benefit that I could gain from doing that and how will I feel once I do? Because once
Mhm.
you focus on that instead of focusing on what other people might think, say, or do, then you're literally claiming your power even before actually stepping out and showing others that you have it.
Yeah. That's really good. I love that. I You mentioned a couple of things that I think are super important. Um, the simple well, I don't know how simple it is, but, when you spoke of, women not even knowing they know that they may have the power, but they don't know how to, I guess, execute might not be the right way, but interject or, assert their power.
Mhm,
And I see this in often in so many different situations, especially when you are in, places where you can't as a woman, that you have to be careful about asserting your power. And I think that sometimes can get tricky for women,
mhm,
especially in work environments.
mhm.
You know, if you happen to work with a variety of different, um okay, I'm just gonna say it, men in in different generations, you're
Uh-huh,
going to be treated differently.
mhm,
There are different levels of the way that men will interact with you, and
mhm.
so I think that gets a little bit complicated. So how do women start to, um, assert themselves yet and feel safe? See, I think that's a thing. That's part of why I think women don't always assert. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. As a matter of fact, and I was speaking about this the other day with our friend Sabrina. Um, one of the things that is critical before you engage in a conversation is to know your audience, know who they are, and have some idea of what the history is, right? So
Mhm.
when we hesitate to express ourselves, sometimes is a reason why. So
Right.
if we're dealing with someone who hasn't been willing to listen, who has invalidated our ideas before, who wants to be in control and doesn't want to hear what we have to say or allow it to be part of the conversation, we will understandably be hesitant to express ourselves. So if you
Mhm.
know your audience, then you have a better idea of when to interject something that you feel you want to share and when not. And of course, if you're in an environment where it is a very, I'll say it, a male driven, which many work
Yeah.
environments are, and they're not necessarily bad, but if it's a male driven environment where there's been a certain expectation set about how things go, and then a
Mhm.
woman comes in with a different way of looking at it or a different way of dealing with it, unless these men are confident enough in themselves, it's going to be a situation where it might be
Yeah.
very hard for a woman to express herself. You're talking about something that relates directly to a subject that's been a fascinating one for me to do some research on. Actually, last year I did a presentation on imposter syndrome. Right, so many
Mhm.
women say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I would do it, but I have imposter syndrome." Well, imposter syndrome was a term that was coined in I believe it was in the 70s, by two psychologists who did research, and most people don't know the background to this. They
Mhm.
did research on women who were high achieving, extremely successful, and had literally broke the glass ceiling, the exception to the rule. They were
Mhm.
extremely competent, and they made it into different, really notable settings in academia and in corporate settings. And they found they had a hard time with being in those settings. And the main reason was the way in which things had been run, because it was a male run,
The culture.
environment.
Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly, a male run culture. It made it very, very hard for them to know how to be in this environment. And
Yes.
so when they were in that environment, trying to act like the men in the environment, right, rather than
Yes.
being themselves, they
Right.
felt like an imposter,
Yes.
and see their own um, they couldn't see their own value, and they couldn't
Mhm.
recognize that they had something to offer, because the environment was one in which they didn't feel safe, or they didn't know
Mhm.
how to negotiate. And so in those environments they felt like an imposter, because it felt like, this doesn't fit for me, right? And then
Right.
also they
Yeah.
were worried about how the men in the environment would respond to them. And so
Mhm.
the idea of imposter syndrome actually came out of this study that was of extremely smart, capable, competent women who, because of where they were in those different environments, they didn't
Mhm.
feel like they fit in, and so they couldn't claim their power.
Yes. And I've heard I mean, this to me, this kind of goes back a little bit to the feminist movement, and I know that that kinda gets a bad rap, yet, in some, areas, there's definitely criticism you could apply to it. Yet, I remember hearing someone say that, the one thing that was a disservice in the feminist movement was that they were so concerned about getting to the table that they didn't really take it far enough that once you got to the table, then what? Because so many women were placed then in those boardrooms in a different culture. So, but I'd like to kind of shift gears and move into confidence, because you mentioned confidence in this, what we were just talking about imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Women that have confidence just because they Hmm. I guess we can consider it kind of shrinking down a little. It's really, like you said, knowing your audience and knowing how you can and cannot maneuver, within a situation. So how does a woman hold on to her confidence, because it's such a game changer when she is having to pivot in these moments of, where the environment's not going to support her if she came in 100%. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the answer, I know you're going to laugh. The answer is that it depends. It depends on the situation. I think, and it depends on the situation. It depends on the nature of what's happening in the situation. So if it's something relatively minor, so not always easy. Family stuff is
Right.
not always easy, right? But if it's a
Yeah.
relatively minor thing that has to do with something within the family, and
Mhm.
the expectation is, I'm going to get pushback about this, then the question is, well, how important is it to me to actually say that? Is it important enough for me to say that? And if it is, then once you say it, whatever the reaction of the other person, at least you can say to yourself, well, you know what? I just stepped forward and I said it. I
Yeah.
can't control what the other person's going to do. I just did it. Whereas if you're in
Mhm.
a situation like a work situation, and again, it depends on what you know about your audience. Like, so if you're in
Yeah.
a new situation, you don't really know the audience, then it's hard to be able to predict what the likelihood is. If you have a
Mhm.
difficult boss, and I've had many difficult bosses when I was not
True.
working for myself, which
Yeah.
fortunately I am now. When you have a difficult boss, there are times when you really can't assert yourself and you can't express what you want to
Right.
say. And if it's that bad in that situation, then you may or may not want to stay there. I think the key with confidence is something most people don't understand. The key
Mhm.
with confidence is that if you're raised by parents who tell you you can do it, who encourage you on, who lend you their confidence until you develop your own, then
Yeah.
you're more likely over a period of time to take a chance and try different things. And then once you try them, that's when the confidence builds.
Mm.
Most women think that confidence is something I have to sit and wait for it to come. And then once it comes, then I'm going to do it. And so
Yeah, no.
you can sit and wait a very long time and confidence doesn't appear because the truth is confidence is something you develop over time from having accomplished things and shown yourself and being able to see I did
Mhm,
it.
mhm. It's absolutely true, and, I mean, there's so much that you can really hone in on that, and I know that you have don't you have a group for women, around confidence?
I do.
Yeah.
So I have a bi-weekly women's confidence circle. It's on Tuesdays at noon Eastern time and not Fridays, Thursdays tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And it's an online
Mhm.
women's experience. People can drop in and we have conversations about what it's like to be a woman and what are some of the obstacles to being confident and what are the things we can do to help build it. It's completely free and anybody who's interested can go to my website, which is youramazingjourney.com, and just click on the tab for a confidence circle. All the information is there. There are two separate links for each of the 2 days, and all you need to do is just register so I know who's coming, and then just show up, and people can show up as many times as they want.
Oh, that's so nice. I love that you offer that. I think it's really important for women to, like, have other women that go through the same types of things and can express themselves. I think that telling, your story and witnessing one another is one of the most important things that women can do to support each other. I see this in my Art of Awareness community as well. So I love that you offer that to women. So speaking up and setting boundaries, I know that they can feel really uncomfortable for women who are used to saying yes to everything, which is many, many women were raised this way to be accommodating. And, what's one small yet powerful shift that they can make today to start reclaiming their time and energy?
So I was thinking about the question when you shared it with me,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of different possible answers, but this is one, and it speaks directly to your work,
Mm.
which I love.
Thank you, Joan.
You're welcome. The idea of taking a soulful pause,
Mhm.
noticing what's going on in front of you, noticing what's being asked of you, or notice what you may need to do, and take a
Yeah,
deep breath and slow down and pause and say to yourself, I can take some time to just take in what happened
yeah,
and feel it within me and
yeah,
notice what feelings are coming up and notice what I'm hearing from within. For those
yeah,
who have a clear idea that they have developed intuition, you may not
yeah.
know that you have and it's still there, but for those of you that have a clear idea that you've developed intuition, to tap into your intuition and say to
Mhm,
yourself, okay, so this is the situation. Now, what do I want to do?
mhm.
What do I want to do? So the first thing is to slow down and take that time for yourself because women automatically, in so many situations, will say yes without even thinking about whether or not that yes is going to work for them.
Right,
Whether or
yes.
not that yes is the answer they even want to give. Do I really want to say yes? And so if you pause and ask yourself whether or not this is something I really want to do, is it something
Mhm.
I really need to do? And here's the other thing. There are people who will come to us as women. They have a need and they're in a panic. Well, I don't know what to do. And so
Yeah,
they want to hand their need over to us and have us take care of it.
Yes.
My favorite expressions is the following: lack of planning on your part doesn't make this an emergency on my part.
That's really good.
If somebody didn't plan adequately for something, or if someone else has an emergency, if it's a life threatening emergency, that's a different story. We show up, we do what we have to do, fine. But if someone has a situation in which it's either unexpected or because of their decisions that they've put themselves into a jam, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean we have to rescue them.
Right.
And so we can say many versions of, that sounds really difficult. I wish you good luck in figuring it out. Or that sounds really difficult. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I'm not going to be able to help you with this, without having to justify or explain it.
Yes. And I think that that's something that women think they have to do. That
All
you
the
always have to follow it up with a reason why it doesn't work for you, and it better be a good one, because people need to understand that, there's a reason why you can't do it. Rather than it just being simple and simplified. You don't hear men giving you reasons why,
Mhm.
and don't give you a reason why they can't do something. They just say, "Oh, no, I'm not gonna be able to do that."
Here's another big thing that comes from this. There are many fears women have about what's going to happen if they say what they want to say, if they speak the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
One of the many powerful inhibiting factors for women is the following:
Mhm.
I don't want to disappoint anybody.
Right.
I don't want to disappoint anybody. I better do that because I don't want to disappoint them. Well, here's the thing: if you make a promise to do something, if you've already made a commitment, and then
Mhm.
you back out and you leave someone in a bad situation because you back out, you don't honor the
Right.
commitment, that's one thing.
Right.
That's one form of disappointing somebody, which
Right.
is the direct result of your choosing to take back what you've promised.
Yes, and it's also an integrity thing.
Exactly. So you're out of alignment, you're out of integrity if you
Mm,
do that.
yeah.
When you have a situation come up and you want to say, no, I don't want to do that, or this is the way I'd prefer it, or I'm not comfortable with that. Any form of setting a boundary, I'm particularly um, focusing in many ways in my work on boundaries, the boundary of saying no. Um,
Mhm.
a natural consequence of you're not giving someone else the answer they want
Right.
is they're going to be disappointed.
Mhm. Or
Oh, right.
angry.
I'm sorry.
I said, or angry.
Right,
I think
exactly.
anger scares women too.
Right, and that's a big one also, the fear of
Mhm.
someone getting angry at us. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? Here's the thing. If we have a decision to make about whether or not we wanna do something, and we're not leaving someone in the lurch in an
Yeah.
emergency, and they have a disappointing reaction or they become angry,
Mhm.
anger is not a pleasant thing to deal with, but, oh, well, we are in alignment
Mm.
with our integrity. This is what
Yeah.
feels right to us. The more we as women listen, slow it
Mhm.
down, take a step back, and take that soulful pause,
Yes.
the better we will be, the more of our energy and time we will remain connected to, will hold on to. We won't be giving it
Mhm.
away to everybody else. And then having preserved that time and energy, we have it now for ourselves for what we
Yes.
truly want to do.
Right. And I think that, it is a practice in having the soulful pause. I know that for many of us, we're so used to running, running, running and doing we don't think about it's just automatic. We don't think about like, "Oh, maybe I should step back and think of whether I really wanna say yes here." It takes that practice of taking a deep breath, giving yourself just a moment, let it kind of like, I let the idea sit in my body for a second. And if I'm unsure, I say, "Let me think about it." And giving myself permission to not answer right away was the biggest thing that helped me to overcome that jumping in and saying yes to everything, because that was me. I used to do that all the time. And I would also say yes to things that I knew I didn't really want to do. And then I would end up like, okay, let's just get this over with. And that's no way to live your life.
You made a very powerful point. I'm going to extend that.
Yeah.
You said something about, I'm not sure, let me get back to you.
Mhm.
So one of the many things I do is I'm a communication specialist, and I actually literally work with people and help them to workshop a challenging situation they're entering into, how to deal with it.
Mhm.
So when you are faced with something difficult, especially with someone difficult,
Mhm.
and you've heard what they're saying, and in your head you're going, hell no, I'm not doing that. But you don't want to just say that. If you know you want to say no, what you can do is you can say, I'm really not sure. Let me get back to you. You say
Mhm.
it very quietly, very calmly, and then you say to yourself, this is actually a no, but I'm
Mhm.
not going to address it now. I'm going to allow time and distance to be an advantage to me so
Mhm.
that when I say it, I'm in a better situation. I'm not necessarily in person with that person. Not to,
Right. Yes, yes.
I could call them on the phone. Or I could
Yeah.
send them a text message. I checked my schedule. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to help you with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it
Exactly.
depends on the situation, but being able to say, I'm not sure as a transition to know can be a helpful way for you
Yeah.
to be able to get to know without letting somebody else know that's where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's really important to, like, have those moments of, or your stock answers, right? Like, "Oh, let me think about that," or, "Oh, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that," or whatever it is that you
Mhm,
come up with for yourself
mhm,
that fits your style of communication.
mhm,
Because, knowing being able to do that helps build your confidence muscle in responding no.
mhm.
So
Exactly. And here's the other thing, going back to what I said in the beginning about knowing your audience. When you know your audience and you have an idea that the audience is receptive,
mhm,
okay? And somebody who has been willing to listen, been reasonable with you, validated how you feel, they're a good person to have a conversation with. You can
yeah,
practice that with people you know are more likely to respond in a positive way.
mhm,
So you're choosing an environment in which, when the situation comes up where you want to say no, you're not
yes,
fabricating anything, but when an actual situation comes up and you say no, then you can sit back and just go back inside and notice, how does that feel? I just said
right,
no.
yeah,
Whoa, I did it. I said no. Whoa, what happened? Oh, well, they seemed disappointed, or they actually said, okay, I'll take care of it myself. Or
mhm,
was the reaction that I got a reaction that was as bad as I thought it would
right,
be? And if it was, is it because the audience is just very difficult and would be likely to give me that reaction anytime I didn't agree with them or go along with what they wanted?
yeah, yeah, exactly, and I think that what you've touched on there is, important in 2 different ways. One, it's another opportunity to pause and to recognize what you have just interacted with and how that felt to you. And, you also said something that I wanted to touch on a little bit deeper, and it's escaping me. Oh my gosh, I hate when that happens. It'll come back. It'll come back. I'm gonna go on though, because there's something else that will rise again. So when here's my last question that I'm gonna ask you. When a woman finally realizes that her worth starts when she starts to say yes to herself,
Mm.
what ripple effects do you see in her life, career, and relationships? What are the common things that you've seen that start to happen when she starts to say yes?
She feels her value.
Mm,
She begins to feel my needs are important. It may not happen right away, but over time, she begins to recognize, wait a minute, I put myself first.
Mhm.
And then in that process, as a result of that, I did XYZ that I might not have done. And like, what was that like? So again, going back, taking a pause and saying, I love that. That was great. I want to do that again. So there was this reinforcement there to
Mm.
keep saying yes, to go forward beyond that. For women who, for various reasons, have felt there was a need for them to play smaller in their lives,
Mhm.
when you say yes, you're declaring your value to others.
Mhm.
So not only are you feeling it yourself, you're declaring your value to others. And you recognize that you don't have to compromise yourself, what you want, what's
Yeah.
important to you, and what matters. And here's the other thing that I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately. Women, because we take on everybody else's stuff and we put ourselves last or put
Mhm.
ourselves, further down the priority chain. Um, when we put ourselves higher up, we recognize that we have the right to choose ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we choose ourselves, it is less likely that we're going to be disappointed. I mean, if we make a decision and then what we decide to do isn't quite what we thought it would be, that's a different situation. But we often absorb, we often live with, and we
Mhm.
often accept
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
f- a fairly constant level of disappointment.
Mhm.
Because when
That's
we
such a
make a
good point.
decision, right, when we make a decision to do something someone else's way or to put our needs to the
Mhm.
side, and then we think about what we would have wanted to do, then we're disappointed that we didn't
Yeah.
do it. And then when we do that, here's the double whammy that women put on themselves. Then we're disappointed in ourselves. Oh, I
Exactly.
should have done it. I didn't do it. And but the pressure we feel in so many different ways and from so many different sources to go along and to do the things people want us to do is so
Right.
strong that we end up continuing to do that. So, not disappointing ourselves is one of the biggest things that comes out of saying yes to ourselves.
Oh,
And
so good.
the opposite of that is
Yeah.
getting what we want,
Right.
living the life we want.
And I think when you talk about, like, disappointing yourself, you then end up building resentment. It's like seeds of resentment are planted in you,
Mhm.
and that can actually make you physically ill later if you keep doing that and don't clear up those little seeds that you planted of feeling, you start to resent that you are always disappointed.
Exactly. And then what happens is some people sometimes, if if a woman is not aware of that,
Mhm.
they can project it onto other people
Yes,
and be resentful of
absolutely.
the other people that they agreed to help, that they have gone along with. And the truth is, if you're making the decision, however conscious or unconscious,
Yeah,
it's still your decision. I,
yeah,
I love what Brene Brown, I love Brene Brown, but I love
yeah,
one thing Brene Brown said about it. She talked about a situation where she had difficulty saying no and yes, and
mhm.
difficulty saying yes to herself. And she said, when I started saying no, I realized that I became a nicer person.
That's right, because she took care of herself better.
Right. And so
Yeah,
she eliminated those situations in which she was building the resentment up.
yep, yeah, exactly. And then most people don't really understand where your attitude comes from, when they interact with you because you're coming with a whole stack of resentments and feeling, like you are gonna have to do something that you don't really want to do, and you don't know how to disagree with it. And
Mhm.
there's like a whole other section of this around accountability that's a whole other conversation.
Well, and the two primary areas I work with women, and we talk about all sorts of things, but the two primary areas I focus on are communication and confidence, and they're totally and
Mhm,
directly related, because when you have a situation in which there's something you need to say, there's something you really want to express,
mhm.
when you're able to figure out how to do that
Yeah,
and you do it, that's when your confidence grows. And the more
yes.
you are able to learn how to skillfully express what's going on for you, what you want and what you don't, the
Mhm.
more you can do that, the more confident you can become,
Yes.
over time. And it doesn't mean being selfish. It doesn't mean ignoring when someone needs us. It just means not ignoring when we need us.
Exactly, and the word selfish, I think is a trap in a way for women because, they think that if they aren't doing for others, then they're being selfish.
100%. That's a big, with a capital S,
Yeah,
selfish. If I don't show up for you whenever you want
you
me
want.
to,
Yep.
right.
Mhm.
And the thing is, so then it's a matter of looking at it and saying, wait a minute, that's a false belief. I don't have to
Right.
show up every single time you want me to,
Yes.
because otherwise I'll have no energy whatsoever for me, and my life will be solely about you. How much in our relationship do I show up for you? Do I show up for you when it really matters?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
do I step back and say to myself, those are things they need to figure out how to do themselves, because that's their growth process and
Yes.
that's their journey.
Yes, exactly.
And if I
Well,
step in and intercede around those things, I'm
yeah.
taking away their learning opportunity.
Right, exactly. So I'd like to we need to get going, but I would like to have you talk to us about something really special and important that's coming up in your world. And I'm gonna hand it over to you. Can you please tell the audience what you have coming up?
Sure, I'd be delighted. This Saturday, March 29th, I am hosting a women's empowerment retreat online. How can I do this? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about my background also. I'm a yoga teacher. I teach meditation, and I've been doing that for 25 years. And I love creating an environment where women can come together, feel safe and connected, and deeply relax before anything else happens. And this is my superpower. It really is. I've been doing it for over 30 years. We're going to gather together and we're going to talk about this very subject. The name of the retreat is Saying Yes to You.
Mm.
What that means is taking a look at the different disempowering beliefs and expectations that have driven women to ignore their needs, to put themselves last, or not make themselves a priority, and how we can shift those using mindset and looking at the different ways in which those expectations create a scarcity mindset, shifting into an abundance mindset and empowering ourselves to be able to say, you know what, I can say yes to myself, and then actually looking at specific concrete situations in each woman's life. Each person is going to do that, in which they can apply those principles and actually come up with a strategy and a plan for how they're going to deal with that next situation when it comes up, in a more skillful way, in a more informed way, and in a way that is more likely to help them build confidence so that they can do it again in the future.
Mm. Oh my gosh, Joan, that is so full of so many wonderful things. So, ladies out there, if you're interested in this topic and you really have a stellar opportunity here to jump into this retreat with Joan. Joan has over 30 years of experience working with women in empowerment and confidence and all of these topics that she's going to be diving deeper with you. So please join. I will be putting the links for this in the playback and also on a Soulful Pause on Instagram. You can go to YouTube at Josette Diaz Coach and You will find the replay of this and all the information there as well. So there'll be plenty of places to find it. You won't get lost. And if you do feel lost, DM me because I'll get you in touch with Joan right away.
And
Joan,
I
thank
and I
you.
did and I did something. You're welcome. I just want to add one thing quickly.
Yes,
I did something to make it easier for everyone. I've actually set up my website so that when you go to the main page, youramazingjourney.com, it goes straight to the retreat page. So all you need to
beautiful.
do is go to youramazingjourney.com. It'll go to the retreat page. Then all you need to do is click on the link. You'll learn more about it and you can register there.
There you go, everybody. Thank you so much, Joan. It's a beautiful conversation. I'd love to have you back and continue having more conversations with you. So thank you so much for being here. I think you brought a lot of value to everyone. And everyone, we will see you next week. So have a lovely week and come back for a soulful pause.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a delight being here with you and sharing
Thank you,
this
Joan.
conversation.
Thank you, Joan. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.